Okay, I've spent way too long trying to make this camera as even as possible, and I'm just gonna let it be where it's at and film this. So, hi everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Kunan. Sorry, I mispronounced my own name. I also brought my coffee with me this time. Thank goodness. So today I would like to go over the second part of the bite model. So here, I'm gonna bring it. I got this information from the freedomofmind.com, and you can also just Google bite model for cults and multiple ones of them will pop up, but the Freedom of Mind will pop up first. And today we're going to go over the information control, which is the I part of the bite model. And hopefully it won't run as long as last time, but we shall see, because as I was writing down my notes yesterday, it was a lot. It's three pages of notes, which is more than I had last time, so we shall see. Okay, so the first thing they talk about, the first thing I want to talk about is how the bite model works. So the bite model is just 4 sections of control that a lot of cults will use: behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. And each of these has subcategories of where of how they would do it, and then you could go through and figure out how, like, because not all of these are going to work with all cults, and not all cults are to the most extreme end. Some of them, like most churches, will have something in some of this. However, that doesn't mean that every single church that's out there is a cult. It's up to the people who have attended the churches to sit down and go over each of these and see if that's a yes or a no, or even rate them on a number scale like I'm doing now to see if they feel that that church belongs in a cult. And I am doing this so that way to answer some questions for some people who had asked me, because I so confidently say that a former church that I went to here locally in Fairbanks, Alaska is definitely a cult. So the information control has 9 different sections, and the first section is to deliberately withhold or distort information, and this one's really high for Bible Baptist Church. I'm going to say this one is 8, possibly even as high as a 10, though maybe not that high, because we do have cell phones and access to internet. It's just, I will go over that in a moment. So, obviously the way they portray science and scientists is distorted or withheld. Like, they will talk about climate change as though it's this huge conspiracy theory used to make scientists rich. They also talk about the Big Bang Theory and evolution in straw man terms, where they simplify it so much that it's really easy for them to refute. And their favorite way to do it is by saying that it's the theory of evolution, and they say, oh, well, a theory is just a guess. And it's like, well, the hypothesis is the guess. The theory is the tested hypothesis, which is why it stands so well. But they don't understand that. So another thing that they do this for is sex ed, which I've already talked about in the last segment. So they do lie about how genders are in the natural world, in both the animal kingdom as well as with us people, even though I like to contend that we people are part of the animal kingdom. They don't. So they also will lie about the LGBTQ community. They'll lie about what their goals are. They'll lie about what the statistics are for the people in the community. I mean, the statistics in the community are not good, but the statistics in the community are not good because it's really difficult to get good resources, and it's really just difficult to be a member of the community if you're not accepted by other people. They also will lack knowledge in the class, like I talked about yesterday. They promote unhealthy relationships, and they also do not promote healthy relationships. I don't think they do this on purpose. I think that they really truly believe that what they're promoting is the best way possible people can do things, and I don't think they realize that they're the way they're basing it is just not very accurate. They will also tell lies, like about how AIDS got started. They will lie about how that, and like many other things. They will also lie about other religions. So they will they'll make claims about the King James version of the Bible, which is the Bible that they use, but they won't provide any evidence for that. They will also distort other religions. Like they'll say that all Muslims are terrorists, and they'll distort other religious sects within Christianity. So when I attended, they would say that Catholic people were not really Christian because the Catholic people, and then they would start lying about what Catholic people had done, which as I got older and I did more research, because I was encouraged to do my own research and to back up these claims, I found out that it was false. Some of my family members are Catholic, and they were able to explain to me how Catholicism worked, as well as a couple other Catholics in town. And that's not the only religious sect. They'll do it for any of them. So like if Mormonism was ever to become popular in Alaska, they would talk about how Mormons are not really Christians either. And I do think that they do say that Mormons are not really Christians, and that's why they supported Bush over Romney at one point in time, or it's so long ago, I don't really remember. They will also spread conspiracy theories. So there was a movie that came out a while ago called Prayers for Bobby, which is based on a mother's own retelling of how her religious zealotry, I guess I'm going to say, because I don't know the word I'm looking for right now. Her extreme religious convictions that she felt when her son came out to her, and she reacted in a extreme way. She saw how that helped push him to commit suicide, and she wrote a book about it, so that way she could reach out to other people, so that way maybe they wouldn't have to experience the pain that she has experienced. And they would lie about who created Prayers for Bobby and what actually happened in that situation. They also one time played this sound clip, and they said it was there's like this pit that they dug in Russia that they dug it, it's the deepest pit they've ever dug or something, I don't know, and they put a microphone down there to listen to the sounds, and then they played the clip for us, and it was you could hear people screaming, and they said that this is the sound of hell, because hell is underneath the ground. Hell is where the magma's at, I guess. And that was like really scary. And they did this for teenagers. There was like the only adults who were there were the adults who were helping the program. This was a program for teenagers. There were no other adults in the building except for the teachers. They also will talk about how Halloween, like they'll spread all sorts of things about Halloween. So like if you go trick-or-treating, you're inviting, you're participating in pagan rituals, which means that you're participating in the devil's work. And then they'll say if you say the words trick or treat, you're inviting the devil into your soul, which I don't really know how that works, since they also believe that when you say the Romans road to salvation, you will never lose your salvation. So even though I now am an atheist and I am out as part of the LGBTQ community, and I am a Democrat, which these are all three things that they absolutely hate, they still should believe that I will go to heaven, because I one time said the prayer the way it's supposed to be said, and I meant it, because I was 10 and then 14 and then 16, I believe, 15 or 16. I've done it a couple times. That sound clip was really scary. Let's see. And they do, they do try to withhold information. So like, you're not allowed to go to the movie theater or watch any movies that are rated PG, like, they recommend not even watching PG movies, but they will, like, they'll be a little more lax on it. They don't want you watching any PG-13 or rated higher movies, and they're really picky about the documentaries and stuff that they think people should watch. They say to be really careful, and they use that Bible verse where the Bible talks about how to only think on good things, only think on that which is pure and that which is right, and so on and so forth. They'll use that in order to try to keep you from going and finding other information elsewhere. But then they'll tell you to go and research what they're telling you to see if it's true or not. So, I don't know. They discourage a lot of books. There were books in high school that I couldn't read when I did finally transfer to public school because one of the people at the church was still a person who could make decisions in my life because my foster parents gave him that power, and he decided that there were books that I was not allowed to read as a teenager, even though there weren't, I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. I read them already since then, and they're so mild. I guess they would just cause issues. They limit the type of music. You're not supposed to listen to anything that's not about God, so you're only supposed to listen to songs about God, hymns, and songs based on Bible verses. They don't want any secular music, and even Christian music that has a secular beat, like if you listen to Christian country or Christian rap or Christian rock or Christian pop, all of those, none of them, zero zip, you're not supposed to listen to any of those. Just stuff from Beethoven's time, I guess. Or who's I don't know. It'd have to be stuff that does not make you want to dance, because dancing is a sin. So that one, I said an 8 or a 10. They also will limit, like, even some kids' movies like Brother Bear, I'm sure Moana, since that one's come out, anything that has magic in it, so like Little Mermaid and stuff like that, that's all a big no-no. I know as a kid, I wasn't allowed to read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, even though it was written by a pastor, to like indoctrinate more kids, and to give this really beautiful story that I am very sad kind of details some stuff that I don't really like. But I like the idea of climbing into a closet and discovering a whole nother world. So let's go on to the second thing, because there's more, but I'm just going to keep going. So the second thing is they will forbid you from communicating with ex-members and critics. So yes, if they cut someone off from the church, which is rare, then no one from the church is allowed to talk to that person. That is their punishment. That is, I remember the last time that I filmed, I said that I couldn't remember if they did punishments for adults, but they do. They will. I guess Catholics call it excommunication. I don't know what they would call it in the Baptist world. I forget what the word is, but they kick you out, and you're kicked out until you get right with God, and then you have to come back and apologize, and then you have to do all this stuff in order to be accepted back in the community. And if you're one of those people who's kicked out, then no one in the church is supposed to talk to you. It doesn't happen very often, and when it would happen, it was very emotional, and they would do this huge sermon, and it would be like, I remember once the individual that they were kicking him out, and he was in the church as they were telling him that they were kicking him out, and he was no longer going to be part of the church, and his mother was crying, and his dad was like had this stone face, like, he was super angry that this whole thing was happening, and I remember just thinking that it would have been really difficult to tell my child I would never have to speak to them again, because a pastor told me to. I don't think I could do it. But then the thing that happened a lot was people backsliding and leaving the church. That's the term they use, like, for people who get, like, people who do all this amazing stuff for God, and then they start sinning, and then they like sinning, so then they backslide. So, like, I'm one of those people now who, if somebody's like, oh yeah, that's Julie, like, she used to be a member of the church, I wonder how she got this way, and then people would say that I had backslid. That's the term that they would use for it. And they would say that I did it because I like to sin. And they'll like tell all sorts of lies. They'll say like anybody who leaves the church is like really into drugs. They're drug addicts. They're alcoholics. They are having sex all the time. They are like, they'll say all these different things. And I remember when I was 19, I went to go stay with one of my friends. I had gotten kicked out of my apartment and I was looking for another place to stay, and she said I could stay with her for a couple days, and she still lived with her mom. But we were both adults, and she was pretty sure it was going to be okay for just 1 or 2 days. And so we went to her house, her mom's house, and her mom was had woken up or was awake and walked into the kitchen as we were walking in. And I remember she looked at me and she was just like, I heard you got really into drugs and that your parents like kicked you out because of it. And why aren't they taking care of you? And I was like, I'm a foster child. I outgrew the system. I'm 18, or at the time I was 19. I was like, so the foster care system will no longer pay them to take care of me, and this is where I'm at. And she ended up apologizing to me because she had believed all these rumors that I had left the church and started doing all these drugs and got kicked out of my home where my parents kicked me out. She didn't even realize I was in the foster care system and that I had all this other stuff going on. So that one I would say it's probably a 6-ish, because I don't know how they would make sure that nobody talked to the individuals in town. I don't know how they would make sure nobody texted or called. And I'm sure it happened, because I do know that people within the church kept in contact with me after I left the church, a couple of my friends. And some people found out that I was really cool after I left, and so they started contacting me once they started questioning their beliefs. So number 3 is to restrict access to non-cult sources of information. I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to have to say this one's like a 4 or 5, because once again, everybody has a cell phone now. It's pretty common, so therefore everybody has Google at their hand. So restricting access is going to be really hard. They really more do it for teenagers. They recommend that parents do all this stuff on their kids' phones to like keep an eye on them, like for everything. They don't trust teenagers at all. And they also try to use social peer pressure, in order to keep you in line. However, because of how easy it is for Google and places like that to only show you what you're specifically looking for, it is really easy to, even with access to tons and tons and tons of information, to not get information from non-cult sources. It is also really easy for them to just brush aside information from non-cult sources and say, you don't know what you're talking about. For example, recently I was in a group with a member of the church. It was not a group about, it was a group about politics, but somebody had brought up, they wanted to know what the definition for a Muslim word was. And this person automatically went on there and said terrorist. The definition of the word is terrorist, when in reality the definition of the word is, it's a lot more nuanced, and it has to do with a type of, what is it? A type of, I'm going to say self-punishment because I can't think of the word right now, but it's a type of thing you would do in order to honor your deity. So like giving up, like for me, giving up caffeine would be, it could be considered this. Although I think this giving up caffeine would be on the low end. I think it would be more like how we here in America had treated some of the Muslim people, especially on like when we were torturing them, because we did that. That could be considered that word. And I can't remember. I am really failing right now when it comes to words. I'm sorry. So a good example of this is also like the movie theater. So like, even if there's a good movie that's coming out in the movie theater, no one from Bible Baptist Church can go to the movie theater because if they're seen going, it could be said that they're going to see another movie, that they're going to see a rated R movie, either they're going to see one of the movies about sex, as the movie theater plays movies about. I guess 50 Shades of Grey would count as a movie about sex. But that's what they say. So it really does, like, in all the times I've gone, I've only seen a few families kind of buck that rule, and it was only after a long time of working hard, after, like, of trying to decide that the peer pressure doesn't matter to them when it comes to these types of things, did they finally start to go, and these people eventually left the church. So, I don't know. I would give that one a 4 or 5. And then the next one is to compartmentalize information into insider versus outsider information. And yes, they do this. Everything from within the church is insider, and they have approved churches in other cities. So there is one church in Anchorage that they will work with, and actually that church, the pastor of that church used to attend Bible Baptist Church here before he was sent to a Christian college that they had already approved. So they have, like, approved places that they will send people to go and do, where they have gone and listened to, like, the types of sermons, the type of music. They'll look at the types of people who go there, and they'll say, okay, yes, these are our types of people. We don't agree with them 100%, but they can go and do this, and then when they come back, we will fix what these people messed up. It doesn't always work, but that's what they will do. And then, so the next one is to generate and use propaganda extensively. And this one I put sort of as a 5 or 6. They don't really generate their own unless you count the sign that's, like, kind of infamous here. They have a sign on the side of the road where they'll say the most horrific stuff, and they'll say that they're saying it because they are trying to make you think. In reality, they're saying it because they want to anger the opposing enemy. They have a couple people there who will make music. They have some people, they preach a lot. They have, there's the pastor, and then they have different people who have things where they preach at. So, like, the youth pastor or the bus pastor or different things like that. And then they have what they call preacher boys. These are anybody who feels called to preach, who may one day become a pastor themselves, or who may become a missionary or something, then they will preach as well. And they sell I wonder if they sell DVDs now, because when I went there, like, it was over a decade ago, they would sell not VHS tapes, they'd sell little cassette tapes of the sermons. And then they have a little bookstore where they will sell things from other generators. And then they hand out chick tracts a lot. But, like, say if missionaries came up and a missionary was married and had 5 daughters, and all of the women in his family sang, and they would make CDs, then we would sell their CDs, if it was approved type of music. They also support a lot of political propaganda from the Republican side. They do have one of our representatives, John Coghill, attends church there, and his family, my kid's stepmom used to go there, just like I did. She also left the church like I did, only she's kind of going back, unlike myself. And so they will use that. And then the next one is use information gained in confession sessions against you. Now this one's a maybe, because Baptists do confessions differently than other religions. They don't expect us to come to them with each and every sin. They expect us to go to God with each and every sin. We only go to them if we have trouble stopping doing the sin. So, like, say if I were continuously watching porn, which watching porn is a sin, they would, after, like, praying about it and not stopping, I would then go to the pastor and say, right, like, schedule a meeting. And then with the pastor, I would bring up, like, hey, I have this problem. I'm watching a lot of porn. I can't seem to stop. I wonder if I have a porn addiction. And then the pastor would work with me there. And then if I do think that because of that, a lot of the sermons are based on confessions that he gets throughout time. And then they do have public confessions, which the public confessions are used as both a punishment and as a way of keeping control and as a way of shaming a person in public. So people have stood up and confessed to, teenagers have stood up and confessed to getting pregnant. Teenagers have stood up and confessed to not obeying their parents as well as they should have. Adults, married men have stood up and confessed to watching porn or to cheating on their spouse. I think that the only confessions that they did not have publicly are confessions of sexual abuse, because then for that they would blame the victim usually, and then confessions for spousal or child abuse. I think that if they felt if they were to do that, that would call into question a lot of things. So I think they tried to handle all of that behind closed doors. The next one is to gaslight you to make you doubt your memory. This one I have no idea. I only went as a teenager and it's been over a decade. So I wouldn't doubt it, but at the same time they record everything for all the sermons and stuff like that. So if they were to try to gaslight you, they would try to do it. It would have to be about something that you wouldn't be able to get evidence on. I guess that's not true. I guess people who would gaslight you would try to gaslight you either way and just kind of hope that you wouldn't check. So, I don't know. So that one I'm just not going to answer because I don't know. The next one is they would require you to report your thoughts, feelings, and activities to your superior. I'm going to say that one's low. That one's probably like a 2 or 3 because once again, they only require you to talk to someone about it if you feel that you are struggling and you can't handle it on your own with God's. Like, if you're constantly praying to God and it's not working and you're wondering why God is still having you deal with this issue, then you would talk to someone and they would help you. So then the next one is they would encourage you to spy and report on others' misconduct, often using the buddy system. So this one I'm also going to say is really low. It's also a 2 or 3, maybe a 4, because they do use the buddy system as a way of keeping people safe. So when they do go out and knock on doors, which they are one of the few churches that will do that here in town, they do use the buddy system for that. But they also consider tattling a form of gossiping, and they also preach against praying for people because that could be a form of gossiping if you're praying for someone out loud in a group setting, unless it was something as simple as like say once again, let's use something else this time. Let's say someone is like 8 and they keep swearing because they're a bus kid. And this bus route is really having an issue with it because it's causing a lot of disruptions on the bus. Then if they were to pray about it, they wouldn't say what's happening in the situation because it would be too close to gossiping. So what they would say is Dear God, please help Bobby control himself, and you know what's going on and you know what's best, so can you please handle that situation for us? And they would end it there. So I'm going to say this one's really, really low. However, if you do see something that is considered bad enough, then yes, they would want you to tell somebody. And then the last one is to use Big Brother surveillance methods. Big Brother surveillance methods. There we go. And this one I put really low as a 1 or 2 because they do film all of their services. However, that's it. I don't think they do much more. I mean, I have left over a decade ago, so maybe they have more up, but I don't know. I don't think they would like it. And then they do recommend for teens, once again, on their phones, that you have as much of that spyware stuff on there as possible to see what teenagers are doing, to see where they're going, to see who they're hanging out with, who they're calling, who they're texting, what kind of websites they're looking up. All of that fun stuff. So this has been the information control. There's only two more. There's thought control and emotional control. So hopefully I'll have those both done next week. Otherwise, I will get to the thought control at the very least. Hopefully I'll have it up by Tuesday. If I don't have it up by Tuesday, I should have it up by Thursday. So thank you for hanging out with me, and let's go have some coffee. Thank you. Bye.